Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, mapping new systems and looking for planets that might support life. It was quiet work, but Jake liked it that way. After 20 years in the space fleet, he preferred peaceful missions to the wars he had fought in his younger days. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lisa Chen from her science station. She was the best researcher Jake had ever worked with, smart enough to solve problems that stumped entire teams back on Earth. Her fingers moved quickly across her controls as she tried to make sense of the readings. "What kind of strange?" Jake asked, walking over to look at her screen. "It's a signal, but not like anything we've seen before. The patterns are too complex for natural space noise, but too organized to be random communications. Someone is definitely sending this, but I can't figure out who or what." Marcus Johnson looked up from his security post. The big man had served with Jake for 5 years, and his instincts about danger had saved their lives more times than Jake could count. "Could be a trap," Marcus said. "Pirates sometimes use fake signals to lure ships into ambushes." Katie Walsh spoke up from the engineering station. She was young, only 25, but she understood the ship's systems better than anyone. "The signal is coming from empty space, not from any planet or station. Whatever is sending it is either very small or very far away." Jake thought for a moment. His orders were to investigate anything unusual they found, but he also had to keep his crew safe. "Lisa, can you decode any of it?" "I'm trying, but it's using some kind of encryption I've never seen. Give me a few hours and I might be able to break it." "Do it," Jake said. "But we keep our shields up and weapons ready. Marcus, I want full scans of the area every 10 minutes. If anything moves toward us, we jump to hyperspace immediately." Lisa worked for the rest of the day, barely stopping to eat. Jake watched her screens fill with numbers and symbols that meant nothing to him. The rest of the crew went about their normal duties, but everyone kept glancing at the science station, waiting for answers. Finally, late in the evening, Lisa called out, "I've got something." The bridge crew gathered around her station as she explained what she had found. "It's not just one signal. It's actually hundreds of different transmissions all layered together. They're using a communication method that lets them send multiple messages at the same time without interference." "Who's sending them?" Jake asked. "That's the interesting part. Based on the signal patterns, I think there are at least 12 different species involved. They're all talking to each other, coordinating something big." Katie leaned forward. 12 species? We've only found 3 other intelligent races in all our years of space travel. "These aren't the ones we know about," Lisa said. "The technology they're using is far more advanced than anything we've seen. They can send messages instantly across huge distances, maybe even across the whole galaxy." Marcus frowned. "Why haven't we detected them before?" "They weren't trying to hide," Lisa replied. "We just didn't know how to listen. It's like they're using a radio frequency we never thought to check." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If there were 12 advanced alien species out there, why hadn't they made contact with humanity? "What are they talking about?" Lisa's face grew serious. "That's where it gets scary. I've only decoded part of it, but they keep mentioning something called the prime restriction. It seems to be some kind of law that all species must follow." "What kind of law?" "From what I can understand, no species is allowed to develop instant communication technology. They call it the most dangerous invention possible, something that must never be created." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about Earth's breakthrough. 3 years ago, when Dr. Rodriguez and his team had created quantum entanglement communicators. The technology allowed instant communication across any distance, revolutionizing how Earth's colonies stayed in touch with each other. "Lisa," Jake said slowly, "are you telling me that humans have already invented the thing these aliens have banned?" She nodded grimly. "It gets worse. They don't just ban it, Jake. Any species that develops instant communication is considered a threat to the entire galaxy. They have a name for what they do to such species." "What name?" "Cleansing Protocol Omega. Complete destruction of the offending species and all their worlds." Katie gasped. "They're talking about genocide." "It's Not just talk, Lisa continued, her voice shaking. I found references to previous cleansings. The Vorth Collective wiped out 4,000 years ago for developing quantum computers. The Nexil Empire destroyed 800 years ago for creating artificial intelligence. Every species that gets too advanced gets eliminated. Marcus checked his weapon systems automatically. How long do we have? Lisa pulled up another section of the decoded messages. They detected our quantum communications 3 months ago. A fleet of 50,000 ships is already heading toward Earth. The leader is someone called Admiral Zexthon of the Kethvar Empire. 50,000 ships, Jake repeated. Earth's entire space fleet had maybe 200 vessels, and most of those were cargo haulers or research ships like the Endeavor. The messages say they'll reach Earth in 6 months, Lisa said. Once they arrive, they'll start the cleansing immediately. Not just Earth, but every human colony, every human ship, every trace of our species. Jake stared at the alien messages scrolling across Lisa's screen. His mind raced through the possibilities. They could try to run, but where would they go? They could try to fight, but how could 200 ships defeat 50,000? They could try to negotiate, but the aliens seemed to view humanity's very existence as a crime against the galaxy. Captain, Katie said quietly, what do we do? Jake looked at his crew, these people who trusted him to make the right choice. Lisa with her brilliant mind, Marcus with his protective instincts, Katie with her technical skills. Behind them lay Earth, with its 8 billion people who had no idea that their days were numbered. Beyond Earth were the human colonies, families, and children who would all die for the crime of being human. We warn them, Jake said finally. We send a message to Earth immediately, tell them what's coming. That might make things worse, Marcus pointed out. If Earth starts preparing for war, the aliens might see it as proof that we're dangerous. Maybe, Jake agreed, but I won't let our people die without a chance to defend themselves. Even if it's hopeless, they deserve to know. Lisa began preparing the transmission that would change everything. As her hands moved over the controls, Jake wondered if he was making the right choice. In 6 months, either humanity would find a way to survive, or they would cease to exist entirely. The message went out into space, carrying news that would shake the foundations of human civilization. Earth would soon learn that they were not alone in the universe and that their neighbors wanted them dead. 6 months had passed since the Endeavor first intercepted the alien messages. Captain Jake Morrison watched through his ship's cameras as strange vessels appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. The alien scout ships looked nothing like human designs, with twisted metal hulls that seemed to bend light around them. They're early, Lisa Chen said from her station. She had spent the past months learning more about the Galactic Covenant, the alliance of 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Her hair had grown longer during their journey, and stress lines showed around her eyes. How early? Jake asked. 3 weeks. The main fleet isn't supposed to arrive for another 3 weeks, but these scouts are already here. On Earth below, President Helen Carter was holding emergency meetings with world leaders. Jake's warning message had reached Earth 4 months ago, causing panic at first, then desperate preparation. Every nation had contributed ships, weapons, and soldiers to humanity's defense. It wasn't nearly enough, but it was all they had. Marcus Johnson studied the tactical displays. Earth's fleet is taking position around the moon. Looks like Admiral Brooks is putting the heavy cruisers in front, with the smaller ships behind. 200 ships against 50,000, Katie Walsh muttered. She was working on modifications to the Endeavor's engines, trying to squeeze every bit of speed from the old research vessel. It's not even a fair fight. Jake had been thinking the same thing for months, then 2 weeks ago everything changed. The Endeavor had received a secret transmission from someone claiming to be a Covenant scientist who wanted to help humanity. The being called itself Veltar, and it belonged to a species called the Zeph. According to Veltar, the Zeph were made of living crystal and had been part of the Covenant for over 3,000 years. But Veltar had discovered something that changed everything. Captain, Lisa called out, I'm getting another message from our contact. The main screen flickered, and a strange figure appeared. Veltar looked like a walking sculpture made of blue crystal, with light flowing through its body like veins. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. Humans of the vessel Endeavor, I bring urgent news. The truth about the prime restriction is not what the Covenant teaches. Jake leaned forward. What do you mean? The ancient war that created the need for this law, it was not caused by instant communication technology. The Covenant founders lied. They used the technology themselves to conquer other species, then banned it to prevent anyone from challenging their rule. Lisa gasped. You're saying the whole law is based on a lie? Yes. The real reason they fear your quantum communication is because it represents something they never expected. Your species has stumbled onto the path of true unity. Before Jake could ask what that meant, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Marcus checked his sensors and cursed under his breath. Lindy, alien scouts are moving toward Earth. They're not waiting for the main fleet. On the planet below, Dr. Alex Rodriguez was working frantically in his laboratory. The same man who had invented quantum communication was now trying to turn it into a weapon. President Carter had given him unlimited resources and a simple mission: find a way to use humanity's greatest achievement to save them from extinction. The quantum field is unstable, Rodriguez said to his assistant, Dr. Nancy Kim. Every time we try to weaponize it, the system shuts down. What if we're thinking about this wrong? Nancy suggested. Instead of making it a weapon, what if we use it to coordinate our defenses? Rodriguez paused. The idea was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to destroy alien ships with quantum energy, they could use it to link every human ship and pilot into a single network. Perfect coordination across the entire solar system. We'd need volunteers, he said. Pilots willing to fly experimental ships with quantum communicators. The technology is untested. It could kill them. I think we'll find plenty of volunteers, Nancy replied. She was right. Within hours of the announcement, thousands of pilots had volunteered for the mission. Among them were Commander Tony Martinez, a veteran of the Mars Colony Wars, and Lieutenant Amy Foster, a young pilot who had graduated at the top of her class just 6 months earlier. Tony had flown combat missions for 15 years and had never seen anything like the alien scouts. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons charging with energy that made his instruments scream warnings. But something strange was happening to his mind. The quantum communicator in his ship was more than just a radio. As the network activated, Tony found himself sharing thoughts with Amy and dozens of other pilots. He could feel their emotions, their fears, their determination. More than that, he could sense their skills and knowledge flowing into his own mind. Amy was experiencing the same thing. She had always been a good pilot, but now she could feel the experience of every veteran in the network. Tony's knowledge of combat tactics, another pilot's understanding of alien technology, a third pilot's intuition about enemy movements. All of it was becoming part of her. This is impossible, she whispered, then realized that every pilot in the network had heard her thoughts. No. Tony's voice came through both the radio and directly into her mind. This is evolution. The first battle was small but crucial. A dozen alien scouts attacked a human supply convoy near Mars. The human ships were outnumbered and outgunned, but they fought like a single organism. Every pilot knew instantly what the others were planning. Every ship moved in perfect coordination with the rest. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Their ships were advanced, their weapons powerful, but they fought as individuals. The humans fought as something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. When the battle ended, all 12 alien scouts had been destroyed, and only one human ship was damaged. But something else had happened, something that would change everything. The quantum network hadn't just connected the pilots during the battle, it had connected them to something larger, something that felt like the consciousness of humanity itself. Every human death in the battle had somehow strengthened the network, as if human consciousness was being preserved and amplified by the quantum field. Dr. Rodriguez watched the data from his laboratory and felt a chill of excitement and terror. Nancy, look at these readings. The network isn't just communicating thoughts between people, it's actually linking human consciousness together. What does that mean? I don't know, but it's growing stronger with every connection. If this continues, We might become something completely different from what we were. On the alien flagship, Admiral Zexthan studied the reports from the destroyed scouts. The reptilian commander had led cleansing operations against 7 species, and none had ever fought back effectively. But these humans were different. Increase the timeline, he ordered his fleet commanders. Deploy the planet-killer weapons immediately. This species must be eliminated before they evolve further. The message went out to 50,000 ships spread across space, all converging on Earth's solar system. But other messages were also spreading, carried by human quantum networks to every colony, every outpost, every human settlement in known space. The network was growing, and with each new connection, humanity was becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. The aliens had broken their own rule by attacking early, but in doing so, they had forced humanity to break the barriers that limited what they could become. The real war was about to begin, and both sides knew that the galaxy would never be the same when it ended. 2 years had passed since the first alien attack on human space. Commander Tony Martinez sat in his fighter cockpit, watching enemy ships approach through the asteroid belt near Jupiter. His hands moved across the controls with impossible precision, guided not just by his own 20 years of flying experience, but by the combined knowledge of every human pilot who had ever lived. The quantum consciousness network had grown beyond anything Dr. Rodriguez had imagined. What started as simple communication between pilots had become something that connected all of humanity. Tony could feel the thoughts and memories of billions of people flowing through his mind, yet somehow he remained himself. Enemy formation. Approaching from Sector 7. Lieutenant Amy Foster's voice came through both his radio and directly into his thoughts. She was leading her own squadron now, her skills enhanced by the shared experiences of veteran pilots throughout human space. Tony smiled grimly. 2 years ago, Amy had been fresh out of training. Now she fought with the wisdom of commanders who had died decades before she was born. The network preserved everything, every lesson learned, every sacrifice made. I see them, Tony replied, his consciousness touching the minds of his fellow pilots. Instantly, they all knew his plan without him having to explain it. They would use the asteroids as cover, strike fast, then retreat before the aliens could bring their superior firepower to bear. The battle lasted only minutes, but it followed the same pattern as hundreds of others. Human ships moved like parts of a single organism, each pilot knowing exactly what the others would do. The aliens fought well, but they fought as individuals. Against the unified consciousness of humanity, individual skill meant little. When the last alien ship exploded, Tony felt a familiar sensation. The quantum network grew stronger with each human who died, but also with each victory they achieved. He could sense Dr. Rodriguez back on Earth, working frantically to understand what humanity was becoming. On Earth, President Helen Carter stood in the war room, studying reports from across human space. The news was both terrible and hopeful. Humanity was losing the war in terms of numbers and territory. 12 human colonies had been destroyed, their populations numbering in the millions. The aliens had better weapons, more ships, and thousands of years of military experience. But something unprecedented was happening. With each attack, the quantum network grew more sophisticated. Humans were sharing not just thoughts and skills, but emotions, memories, and something deeper that scientists were calling collective consciousness. "Show me the latest reports from Dr. Rodriguez," President Carter said to her aide. The holographic display showed data that would have been impossible to understand 2 years ago. Human consciousness was becoming linked to the fundamental structure of reality itself. People were starting to perceive things that shouldn't be possible, predict events before they happened, and in some cases, actually influence physical reality through pure thought. Dr. Rodriguez had a theory about what was happening, but it terrified him. He believed that humanity was evolving into something that transcended physical existence. The quantum network wasn't just connecting human minds, it was connecting human consciousness to the quantum field that underlied all of reality. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Admiral Zexthan paced the bridge of his flagship. The reptilian commander had expected this war to last weeks, not years. His forces had destroyed dozens of human worlds, killed millions of the creatures, Yet somehow the humans kept getting stronger. "Report," he hissed to his intelligence officer. "The human resistance is growing more effective, Admiral. Our losses in the last 6 months have tripled. They seem to know our tactics before we implement them." Zexton slammed his clawed hand. "On the control panel. How is this possible? They are a primitive species with inferior technology. Intelligence suggests they are using their quantum communication in ways we never anticipated. Instead of just sending messages, they appear to be sharing consciousness itself." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. This was exactly what the Covenant founders had feared. Not just faster-than-light communication, but the evolution of consciousness beyond individual minds. It was the one thing that could threaten the established order of the galaxy. "Prepare the planet killers," Zexthon ordered. "We end this now." But ending the war was no longer simple. The Covenant itself was beginning to fracture. Several member species had withdrawn from the conflict after learning the truth that Veltar had revealed. The peaceful Talnari refused to participate in genocide, while the insectoid Krexin demanded answers from the Covenant leadership. On a hidden base in the Outer Rim, Captain Jake Morrison met with representatives from 6 different alien species. The past 2 years had changed him. The quantum network had touched his mind as well, giving him insights into diplomacy and strategy that he had never possessed before. "The Covenant founders lied to all of us," Veltar said, its crystal body glowing with agitation. "They established the prime restriction not to prevent war, but to prevent evolution." A Talnari representative, its graceful form shimmering with bioluminescent patterns, spoke in a voice like singing. "Our archives contain records of the ancient war. It was not caused by communication technology. The founders used quantum consciousness to dominate other species, then banned it to maintain their power." Jake felt the weight of this revelation. Through the network, every human connected to the quantum field now knew the truth about the Galactic Covenant. More importantly, they understood what they were becoming. "What are we evolving into?" Jake asked. Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with light. "Something the founders feared above all else. A species that can perceive and manipulate the quantum structure of reality itself. Not gods, but conscious beings who exist partially outside the normal flow of space and time." The implications were staggering. If humanity continued to evolve, they might become something that could reshape reality with their thoughts. No wonder the Covenant founders were terrified. Back in human space, the evolution was accelerating. Amy Foster discovered she could sense enemy ships before they appeared on sensors, feeling their presence through the quantum field. Tony Martinez found that his fighter responded to his thoughts as much as his hands, the machine becoming an extension of his consciousness. Dr. Rodriguez made a breakthrough that changed everything. While studying the network's growth patterns, he realized that human consciousness wasn't just connecting to other humans. It was beginning to connect to the consciousness of other species as well. "We're not just evolving ourselves," he told President Carter. "We're creating a pathway for all conscious life to evolve together." This discovery spread through the network instantly. Every human now understood that their transformation could eventually include every thinking being in the galaxy. The quantum consciousness field could connect all life, creating a truly universal community of minds. But first they had to survive the war that was about to escalate beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Zexton's planet killers were moving toward Earth, carrying enough destructive power to crack worlds in half. The final phase of the war was about to begin, and both sides knew that when it ended, the galaxy would be fundamentally different. Either humanity would be extinct, or consciousness itself would evolve beyond anything the universe had ever experienced. The choice would be made in the battles to come, where the future of all thinking life hung in the balance. The final battle began at dawn on Earth, though time had become a strange concept for humanity. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as Admiral Zexthon's massive fleet emerged from hyperspace. 20,000 ships filled the space around Earth's solar system, their weapons charging with enough power to destroy entire worlds. "They brought everything," Marcus Johnson said, his voice steady despite the impossible odds. He had been promoted to fleet commander, his tactical skills enhanced by the collective military knowledge of humanity. Jake nodded, feeling the thoughts and emotions of 8 billion humans flowing through the quantum consciousness network. Fear was there, but so was determination and something else, something that had never existed before in the galaxy. Humanity had become unified in a way that transcended individual existence, yet each person remained uniquely themselves. "Lisa, what are you reading from the quantum field?" Jake asked. Dr. Lisa Chen, now the chief science advisor for Earth's defense, studied her instruments with eyes that saw far more than any human eyes should. "The network is approaching critical mass. Every human consciousness is linked not just to each other, but to the quantum structure of reality itself." Lieutenant Amy Foster flew her fighter through space around Earth's moon, leading a squadron of pilots whose minds were connected across impossible distances. She could feel Tony Martinez coordinating the attack on the enemy's left flank, his consciousness touching hers across thousands of miles of empty space. But something was different this time. As the alien fleet moved closer, Amy began to sense things that shouldn't be possible. She could see the probability waves that surrounded every decision, feel the quantum uncertainties that governed how reality worked. It was as if human consciousness had become entangled with the universe's information matrix. "I can see their next move," she whispered into the network, and instantly every human pilot knew what she meant. The aliens were going to split their forces, attack Earth from multiple directions while Admiral Zexathon's flagship moved to destroy the moon. Tony Martinez felt the same impossible awareness flowing through his mind. His fighter responded to his thoughts before he could touch the controls, the machine becoming an extension of his consciousness. Around him, space itself seemed to bend and shift in response to human will. "This isn't normal physics anymore," he said to Amy through their mental link. "No," she replied, "it's something new." On his flagship, Admiral Zexathon watched the human forces with growing unease. His sensors were showing impossible readings. Human ships were moving in ways that violated known laws of physics, their weapons hitting targets that should have been out of range. "Admiral," his science officer reported, "the humans appear to be manipulating local spacetime around their vessels. Our targeting computers cannot lock onto them," Zexathon hissed in frustration. This was exactly what the Covenant founders had feared, a species that could influence reality through consciousness alone, rewriting the rules that governed the universe. "Deploy the antimatter charges," he ordered. "We end this now, even if we have to destroy half the solar system to do it." The antimatter weapons were the Covenant's ultimate tool, capable of creating quantum disruptions that could tear holes in space itself. Zexathon had 12 of them, enough to not only destroy Earth but potentially damage the quantum consciousness network across the galaxy. But as the charges activated, something unexpected happened. Dr. Rodriguez, working frantically in his laboratory on Earth, discovered that the quantum field wasn't just connecting human minds anymore. The network had grown so large and sophisticated that it was beginning to connect with every conscious being in the area. "President Carter," he called out, "the aliens are getting pulled into our network." Indeed, across the battlefield, Covenant soldiers were beginning to experience flashes of human thoughts and emotions. For the first time in their lives, they felt what their enemies were feeling, experienced the fear and hope and determination that drove humanity to fight. A Kethvar gunner hesitated before firing on a human colony ship, suddenly understanding that the vessel carried families, children, people who loved and dreamed just as he did. A HFY pilot found himself sharing the memories of a human engineer, seeing Earth through human eyes for the first time. The quantum consciousness field was expanding exponentially, touching every mind in the solar system. It wasn't conquest or domination, it was connection, understanding, empathy on a scale that had never existed before. Admiral Zexathon felt it too. Human memories flooded his mind, showing him Earth as a blue marble hanging in space, beautiful and fragile. He experienced human laughter, human sorrow, human love for their world and each other. For the first time in his long military career, he understood what he was trying to destroy. But the antimatter charges were already active, creating cascading quantum disruptions throughout the solar system. instead of destroying the consciousness network, however, the explosions caused it to expand beyond all expectations. Every conscious being in the galaxy suddenly experienced a moment of shared awareness. The peaceful Talnari felt human determination. The insectoid Krexan experienced human creativity. Even the crystal beings of distant worlds touched human consciousness for one impossible instant. In that moment of universal connection, the war simply stopped. Not because anyone gave orders, but because fighting became impossible when you could feel exactly what your enemy was feeling. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge. His consciousness expanded beyond anything he had ever imagined. He could sense every living mind in the galaxy, could feel the quantum threads that connected all consciousness to the fundamental structure of reality. The network isn't just linking minds, he realized. It's showing us what consciousness really is. We're all part of something larger, something that was always there but we never knew how to see it. Amy Foster floated in her fighter, watching as alien and human ships stopped firing and began moving toward each other, not as enemies but as beings who finally understood their connection. The quantum field had revealed a truth that changed. Everything consciousness wasn't separate from the universe, it was how the universe understood itself. Admiral Zexathon opened communications to the human fleet. When he spoke, his voice carried not hatred but wonder. "We have been blind," he said. "The Covenant founders didn't fear your technology. They feared what you would become, what all of us could become together." In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had expected. The old Covenant dissolved, replaced by something new, an alliance based not on control, but on the growth of consciousness itself. Species that had been enemies for millennia discovered they could share thoughts and experiences through the quantum network. The barriers between different forms of life began to break down as understanding replaced fear. Jake Morrison, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the new galactic community, often stood looking at the stars and marveling at what humanity had accomplished. They hadn't just won a war, they had broken the rules that limited what life could become. The quantum consciousness network continued to grow, connecting more species, more worlds, more forms of awareness than anyone had dreamed possible. The galaxy was becoming something unprecedented, a community of minds working together to explore the deepest mysteries of existence. Humanity had broken the alien rule, but in doing so, they had also broken the barriers that kept consciousness trapped in individual minds. The universe was waking up to itself and the journey had only just begun.